I'd like to point out this is the bench that everybody so generously donated for, and Bob has the plaque if you folks wanted to see it. The saying of it is what's on our backs, and it's going to be placed on sometime very soon. All right? On behalf of Clam Digger's family, and please excuse the cards, but I just don't want to forget anything. On behalf of Clam Digger's family, Jean and I, who's been my co-partner here, would like to welcome you all here to celebrate a life well lived. Tuesday would have been his 83rd birthday, and he would want the celebration to be filled with friends and laughter. And look at me. Okay. I'd like to introduce his family. We have Bob Jr. sitting back there with Clammy's necklace on, his wife Lee, and their children Landon and Ruby. Okay, and we also have Rebecca, her husband John, and your daughters Brianne and Corinna. All right, and they're all here. So we'd like to tell the family, all this that you see here, people approached when they found out Jean and I were doing this back in March. You would not believe the overwhelming, everybody came, they wanted to know what they could bring, what they could do. You see all these people in here buzzing around, helping me, making sure everything is set up, filled. I just want to thank you all. Jean and I couldn't have done it without you, and it's just a testament to how we all felt about your dad and respected him. All right. We're going to have a couple of eulogies. Who was on first? Dave was up first, and then Brianne is going to have the second one. Okay, so we're going to hand it over to Dave right now. Who was his fishing buddy? And by the way, there's a quick story to this. Last year when they were out fishing, Clam Digger told Dave that he wanted him to give a eulogy. And Dave and his they used to banter back and forth, and Dave said, "Right now, Clammy?" And then he proceeded to ask him, "Do you want to write it, or do you want me to write it?" So, here you go, Clammy.
Okay, I have my support group here with me. This was Clammy's good fishing buddy, Gage, and the other fella, Owen, my young grandson, Owen. They loved Clammy. Okay, when I'm home and stuff and I try to explain to people about Clammy, I really struggle with that. He had a very unique personality. So what I'd usually do after I floundered around for a few minutes, I'd probably just wind up saying, you know what? Clammy was one of those guys you could live 2 or 3 lifetimes and you'd never meet another person like him. And that was a fact. 19 plus years of fishing experiences with Clammy, adventures. It was a long time, and if I were talented in writing a book, it'd have to be a 3-volume set. Or if I asked my oldest son, Justin, to make a movie about it, he'd say, "Dad, we got to make this a miniseries." So, I mean, and when Mary Beth told me, she says, "You got to keep it under 10 minutes, and it's got to be rated PG-13. I says, "That's impossible." But let's get started. Good morning. On behalf of the family and myself, I too would like to thank you all for coming. I'm Dave Robb. I've introduced my grandsons. And Mary Beth and I spend most of our summers at the end of Pier 2. So for 19 years, we got the pleasure of walking by and talking to Clam Digger. I knew right away that I was going to get to know this guy, and I would immediately started calling him the Pier 2 manager / greeter. He always had a story or a joke for the kids and a sassy comment or greeting for us elders. Now, at one time, there were 3 boats on Pier 2 named Clam Digger. And Owen was about 3 years old, and I couldn't believe that he made that observation. We're walking by one day, and they call me Babu. He says, "Babu, why is that? 3 boats named Clam Digger." And I explained to Owen, I says, "Well, Clam Digger was in the Navy, and he's starting his own flotilla here, right here in the Treman Marina." The truth was, he couldn't decide which fishing boat to keep. He wound up keeping the wrong one. He always seemed to be upgrading his fishing boats, drilling holes or pulling wires. So frequently, when he needed help, my greeting would be, "Hey, Davey, you got a minute?" Well, I was glad I gave him that minute, because that started a friendship that would last the rest of our lives. The connection we had immediately, of course, was fishing. Clam Digger grew up on Long Island, and fishing was a huge part of his life, and a passion he would carry throughout his life. Because Clam Digger was up every morning at 4 a.m., which really wasn't hard to do when he went to bed every night at 6 o'clock, we'd head out fishing at the crack of dawn. Most days we'd catch fish, even when I had bananas on the boat. Now, Clammy was very superstitious about bananas, but I quickly broke him of that habit because we just kept right on catching fish, even though I was eating bananas every morning. I think Daryl had something to do with that superstition. But he totally ignored my superstition, and that was that a captain doesn't drill a hole in his own boat, because I expected one day to walk down this pier and see this block of Swiss cheese with an outboard motor on it. He drilled so many holes in his boats. But he'd always try to bring his passion of fishing to other people by either taking them out or giving them his catch. And my oldest grandson and Gage and Clammy, they bonded very quickly. They were both competitive and they both loved fishing. And one day we were out there and they both caught a real slammer salmon. And they were arguing about whose fish was the biggest. So when we got back to the pier, we had the tail of the tape. And although Clammy would be the first to encourage you to try harder next time, as he was taking the first place trophy, I saw a sigh of relief on Clammy's face when Gage's salmon taped out 1 inch larger. That day, Clammy was fine with being in second place. Clam Digger was the go-to guy for all our electrical needs. He helped many boaters, including myself, with electrical issues, either in our boats or with our shore power. And years ago, we used to have a lot of issues with our shore power, and Clammy was a big asset to all of us. He always saved his best work for us. And if you ever looked in Clammy's fishing boat and saw his work in his own boat, he always saved his best work for us. And his expertise didn't just end with fishing or electrical work. When Dennis Montgomery of Ithaca Boat Works sold his towboat down here, we feared not. We still had Clam Digger. Many a time he would go out, day or night, and he would bring in a boater in distress. I was on the dead end of his tow rope one time, and once we were safely back in our slip, Clam Digger felt the need to critique my performance by telling me, "You don't know shit about boating." Yeah, that's right. Imagine that. I always felt he enjoyed towing me in way too much. So why did I call him the mayor/greeter of Pier 2? Well, he took us fishing, or he gave us fish if we didn't feel like getting up that early. He fixed our electrical issues. He'd come and drag us off the lake if we broke down. And if we were the inclination to walk too closely to the line of legal and illegal, he'd run interference for us with the law if we needed it. One July 4th, we were down on the tee at the end of the pier, getting ready to watch the fireworks begin. Law enforcement was on patrol and very heavily that day, as they always did on the 4th of July. Tremendous amount of boat traffic. And a sheriff's patrol boat pulled up to our tee and began chatting with us. Actually, I think he saw you girls here on the pier, and he just was coming over. But anyways, Clam Digger began chatting with this sheriff's deputy, and during the conversation, Clammy discovered that this was the deputy who earlier in the evening had given the priest on our pier a citation for insufficient number of life preservers. Well, Clammy began riding him like a Kmart pony. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. And I'm watching this for about 5 minutes, and I'm thinking to myself, one of two things is going to happen here. That sheriff is either going to start bawling like a baby, or he's going to pull out his handgun and shoot Clammy. Well, thankfully, neither one of those things happened. The deputy tied up his boat to our pier. He walked down to the priest's slip. He retrieved the ticket, and he tore it up. Who needs a public defender? Most importantly, Clam Digger loved his family and was very proud of y'all. How do I know that? Because he never stopped talking about you. Even though I had met some of the family members only a handful of times, through Clam Digger, I felt like we were living next door to one another, watching your families grow. I'd like to end this with my favorite passage from the Masonic funeral ritual. How honorably he maintained the cares of life we can all attest. Let us, therefore, preserve his memory and dwell on all that was good and amiable in his character. That he was faultless could not be supposed, but as we shall all appear before the Almighty Judge, let our hearts register only his virtues. Rest in peace, Clam Digger. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is a eulogy that I wrote for my grandfather in his earlier celebration of life, and Mary and Dave wanted me to read it for you folks today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Clam Digger's celebration of life on the docks. Standing before you today, I was troubled with trying to form the right words and phrases that perfectly encompassed my grandfather. Looking back at who he was and who he ended up being was truly a tale as old as time. He was able to find the one thing we dreamed to find in one's lifetime all of those many years ago on the skating rink, and that was love. Fate has a way of placing you in the right place at the right time, and I believe that was only just the beginning. As most of you standing before me today know, my grandfather enlisted in the Navy when he was 17. Each branch of the military has their own motto that they live by. The Army's motto is, "This we will defend." The Marines is "Always faithful." And the Air Force is "Aim high, fly, fight, win." And when I looked up the Navy, they didn't have a motto. To me, that seemed like fate, because as we all know, my grandfather always beat to the rhythm of his own drum. Although enlisting may initially not have been his choice, it truly was a turning point for him in his life. He was able to learn the art of discipline and found the meaning of purpose. Being enlisted in the Navy allowed him to learn the craft of becoming an electrician, which was a skill he could learn or could continue to carry out as he switched over to civilian life. As we all know, my grandfather was a little bit of a social butterfly. If you didn't know the Clam Digger, he made for damn sure that you did. He would be the first one to help you dock your boat and then to come back and say, "You don't know shit about boating." He was charismatic, funny, blunt, and everyone's friend. Right or wrong, he would always be by your side to fix an electrical or plumbing issue, especially if duct tape was involved. Most of you know his love for the outdoors, which involved boating, hunting, fishing, and loving every day. We could always count on a great story after a fishing excursion because, as we all know, what happens on the water stays on the water. It can be said that we don't remember the days, we remember the moments. My grandfather always lived for the moments and definitely had no regrets. Despite his ride-or-die attitude, at the end of the day, he always had his family. If there is one thing he was most thankful for, it would be all of you sitting before me today. When he closed his eyes for the final time, in that moment, he knew he had truly lived. They say that the stars in the night sky are our loved ones shining down on us from heaven. On the days where the light shines a little dimmer, he will be our North Star, a boat in the clouds, the port to our starboard, and the anchor when we drift. And above all else, a piece of him will always live on in each of us. The legendary tales of Robert H. Berry will forever be a tale as old as time.
Now, moving on. We're going to have an open mic. So you can all share memories. You don't have to come up. You don't have to speak in the mic if you'd just like to stand. If you'd like to come and speak in front. If you'd like to share a memory, please feel free, come up. Who'd like to start? Jean? Get over here. There you go.
Somebody's got to go first. I'm John Hanrahan, and our boat is on 126. We are diagonal from Clam Digger and directly adjacent to Clam Digger 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. My family had always had ski boats, and back in around 2000, I bought a single-engine 26-foot Bayliner and was assigned Slip 126. My first encounter with Clam Digger was probably like many of yours. As I'm backing up, I hadn't practiced, I hadn't done anything, and lo and behold, the guy holding a beer on the dock is standing there going, "Hey, Captain, what are you doing? Turn the wheel. No, not that way, the other way." And that was my introduction to Clam Digger, and I managed to slam, bam, bang it into the dock. "Where's your spring line?" I, of course, said, "What's the spring line?" Years ago, when an officer retired from an air base I was stationed in, he said, "I've cast a long shadow here, but my shadow, like all shadows, will soon fade." But I dare say, Clam Digger is the exception to that rule. His shadow will not fade from any one of us, because if you knew him, you loved him, and if you loved him, he loved you. He didn't care. And so, my friend, rest in peace.
There's a lot of stories. We all knew Clammy. Come on, don't be shy. Come on. Anybody.
You're struggling up here. Just real quick, we came into Marina in '04, I think it was. I'm Matt Heyer. Some of you know me, my wife Bridget, my sister Lori. Clammy didn't know me from Adam. We backed our boat into the slip, and he's walking down the pier with some venison for us. And I can't believe nobody, well, you just kind of did mention Clammy's voice, but we'd be sitting out on the lake with the radio on, and you'd hear Clammy, and it always brought a smile to your face.
How about Bob Jr.? You want to share one of your stories with us? I know you have many.
So I'm Bob Jr. I'm sure the necklace gave it away. And so on Sundays, probably once a month, we'd go to a winery that would do brunch. And he liked to eat, but what was nice about brunch is that your choices were orange juice or wine. And he didn't even like wine, but he's like, "I'll take that." And so he would drink it, and of course it was extra, extra sweet. He was diabetic, not supposed to have it, and then, you know, double down. And I think all the gals went to the bathroom or something. He and I are talking, and we used to always get like lotto tickets and stuff, and it was more about who got more numbers. It wasn't even about winning the lottery. It was like, I got 2 numbers, they totally beat you. So we would do scratch-offs a lot, and we'd have some scratch-offs, and he won, and I'm like, "Well, put it in your pocket." He's like, I don't get it, Bob. I don't have any pockets. I'm like, "What do you mean you don't have any pockets? Where are your keys?" "Well, they're on the table." Well, he didn't have any pockets in his khakis because he wore mom's pants to brunch. There's no pockets whatsoever. He's like, "Jesus, son of a, there's no pockets." All right, I'll save some for later.
Lee, you had one that just really touched my heart, so if you would like to give the one that you gave.
Okay, I'm Lee Berry, Bob Jr.'s wife, and on Seneca Lake, they just live up the road from us. So I leave very early for work, 6:15 a.m., and every morning, Grandpa, Buzz, he'd be out there on the road waiting, and he'd be probably there a half an hour before I got there. So you're in a hurry, and you want to get going, and he wants you to stop and visit for a minute. And so then we affectionately made a name for him. As you know, we called him Road Greeter. I've heard he's the dock greeter here, but so I would hurry and stop and talk for a few minutes and then hurry up and text Bob, you better leave early because RG's out and he'd like to see you and he'd like you to stop and talk. And so the point is, you know, most of the time we really needed to get going and wanted to get going, and life is busy, but you really need to stop for the road greeter. And now we don't have a road greeter anymore, and we miss it.
All right, we got a few more people. I know we got more stories. Anybody?
Okay, so usually for Christmas we would have him down and we'd eat lasagna because we all know my dad's favorite food is lasagna. And so anyway, we'd have lasagna and we'd have dessert, which was probably like, what do we have for dessert? Something. Anyway, it was like a popsicle. And he'd eat it and he'd be like, I don't like it. And then he'd eat another bite even though he didn't like it. So he'd still eat it because it was food. So that's my story.
Hello, my name is Norma, and my husband and I came to the marina about 5 years ago, and our first slip that we had was next to Clammy at the very end of the pier. And at the time, my daughter was 11 years old, and she loved to run down the pier to our boat, which in turn Clammy would say, "Stop running on the pier." and she would giggle. And then the next year, we decided we wanted to move closer to the shoreline, so we moved to the second pier like that. And she would say, "Is Clammy out?" She'd get here, and she'd look down the pier, and she would run down the end of the pier just to get his goat. And I think it made him smile, and it made her laugh, too.
Hello, everybody. My name is Daryl. I bought, Jenny and I bought a boat summer of 2010, and the owners that we had it on, boat from had an illegal ball out by Poison Ivy Point. And he wanted the ball back, so I bought a different ball. So at the end of 2010 summer, Clammy said, just drop the chain, and you can get it next year and raise it and put the new ball on. So did that. So this was about 2011. It was Memorial Day weekend, and Clammy let me borrow, I think he said it was his grandfather's little grapple. It's like a big treble hook, but it was weighted with like a 50-pound test line. Do you have it, Bob Jr.? I don't know. But anyway, he's like, I've used this to retrieve all kinds of things. I picked up sunglasses from the marina, I picked up towels. He's like, just use it, right? So we went out, and I got on a kayak that I took out with me, and I get in the boat with the kayak, and I'm paddling, and I think, this is about where the chain is. So I take this heavy treble hook, throw it once, reel it, pull it back in, nothing. Throw it twice, pull it back in. Throw it a third time, it goes sailing, the line is in my hand. And I'm like, earmuffs, kids. OF. All right, I'll stop there. And I'm just like, what the hell am I going to do? And my buddy Kevin, who's not here, my buddy Kevin's like, you'll never be able to walk down Pier 2 again because you have to fight Clammy every time you walk down the pier. So that night, I go home and I'm like, let me just buy another grapple. So I went, and allegedly, this grapple is from like a British ship. I think that's BS. But so I bought this one, and I bought a couple other grapples. And then I was like, if I don't, and by the way, I'm going to keep this, and I always think of Clammy, you know, when I see this. Yeah, put a big rope on it. So where was I? Oh, so in case I don't retrieve his grapple, because I'm going to look for it, and I had a big magnet. I think Jim has a big magnet that I've used, and I think it may have been your magnet that I got. So like 2 or 3 days later, I go out there, and at that point I had a different little runabout fishing boat that I parked out there. I anchored, and I went out, and I just kept throwing this magnet till my arm was just horribly weak. And finally, it latched onto something, and I'm like, I think I got something. So I start pulling it in, and as I bring it up, it's that same boat that I'm sitting on's anchor, like covered in weeds. It's just absolutely covered in weeds. I'm like, damn it. So I start pulling it up. The magnet magnetized the anchor, and the grapple stuck to it. So if you find it, it was lost for a time, but I was able to put that grapple back on the clam digger, whatever number it is, your boat, and before the memorial, because y'all were gone that weekend, so he didn't know. He was oblivious that I had lost this heirloom. Anyway, so I got it back, but I got something that'll always remind me of Clammy. So anyway, that's what I got to say.
I'm not sure, but I think that grapple, he won't tell you, but I think he lost it the same way you did. I'm not positive, but I think so, because I haven't seen it on the boat. So I'm John. Buzz was my father-in-law. First time I met him, we were moving furniture into the house. All right, I get there. They got the truck backed up, Rebecca, Madeline, Buzz. And so I jump in, and Rebecca introduces us. He goes, hi. All right. So we unload furniture. We unload this truck. We unload everything, get it all unloaded. And, of course, you know Buzz. It's going 100 miles an hour, you know. And we're going along. We're cranking it out. We get it all unloaded. I need a beer. So we drink a beer, and he finishes the beer, and of course it was on a Friday. Whoops, is it loud? Oh, it was on a Friday, and they were at the dock, and you know, it's Friday. He's got to get back down here to greet everybody. So he looks at me and he says, well, you're all right, John. You better take care of my daughter. I'm going to kick your ass. Come on, Matt, it's time to go. That's how I met Buzz. So there's a lot of Buzz stories out there. A good one is, I've already told it once, I got to tell it again. It's just too good to pass up. So we were, is it too close? Too close, sorry. So we were, it was getting late. We were at the house, Madeline and Buzz were there, and they wanted to go over to Sampson and see the sunset. So I said, I think we can make it. So we jump in the car, we haul over to Sampson, we watched the sunset, and there was a boater that used to be here, and yeah, Buzz knew a boater over there. So we go down to talk with them. Afterwards, we're coming up the hill out of the marine, and he goes, John, I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta go to the bathroom, pull over. So I pull into the restroom, and he goes running in, and we were chatting in the car. Next thing you know, he comes out. Rebecca goes, did he just come out of the ladies' room? I go, yep. So we all know Buzz. He isn't always 100% truthful. So she says, Dad, did you just come out of the ladies' room? No, I didn't come out. I didn't go in the ladies' room. No. I says, are you sure you didn't go in the ladies' room? He goes, nope, I didn't go in the ladies' room. Okay, well, it looked like you came out of the ladies' room. Nope. We're driving down the road, and next thing you know, he says, yeah, I knew I was in trouble when I saw the feminine napkin holder. I says, I thought you didn't go in the ladies' room. He goes, I didn't. Oh, are you sure you didn't go in the ladies? He goes, no, no, no. A little while later, he goes, yeah. He goes, somebody came in. I heard the door open and close. He goes, so I picked my feet up. I says, I thought you didn't go in the ladies' room. Well, I might have. I'm not sure, really. Couple minutes goes by, and he goes, yeah. He goes, I thought the coast was clear. He goes, I came out, and she was standing right there at the sink. He goes, I went over to the sink, washed my hands. He goes, excuse me. He goes, I'm sorry, am I in the ladies' room? She goes, yeah, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. So you did go in the ladies' room. Yeah, I went in the ladies' room. So yeah, that's a classic. We'll never forget it, I'm sure. So we all know Buzz. He's the type of person that somebody pulling in a boat, something needs to be picked up and carried, something needs to be fixed. Yeah, wood cut up, it didn't matter. Where he was, what he was doing. He'd sit there and he'd say, I ain't helping. Like, I'm not helping. He goes, I'm going to drink my beer. I came here to drink beer. I didn't come here for that. He'd be the first one to bitch about it. You know, somebody coming in, look at them. They don't know shit about boating. He'd be the first one to bitch about it, but boy, if you moved a finger to go help, he was up out of that chair and he was the first one to help no matter what. That's how he was. He'd be the first one to bitch and the first one to do it. That was Buzz.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. That's all right. You guys have the most memories.
So Pops and I would be in a fishing tournament every summer in Long Island, fluke fishing, which is when everyone would steal his grapple hooks. No, I'm just kidding. And so we had a 26-foot boat down there, and it wasn't the most legal. And we just kind of flew by the seat of our pants, and he kind of felt like, because he grew up there, that he was, I don't want to say above the law, but he pretty much thought he was above the law. And so we would leave the boat down there, and so it would have zero maintenance, and let's just go with zero stickers, like zero legality. Like the most legal we were, we had 2 infant life jackets for my father and I, and I'm 6'2", and he was a rather large man. So we're out fishing, and we would have, unfortunately or fortunately, a couple 5-gallon buckets of empties that really never got taken off the boat. And next thing I know, the boat won't start. And we're kind of heading into a ferry slip, and they have the right of way, which means they just plow you. That's just the way that goes. So I'm like, we're in some serious trouble here, Pops. And he's like, oh, they'll move. I'm like, that's not really how it works, you know. And so I'm like, we're dead in the water here. And, you know, I'm like, Dad, you want to call one of your buddies? You know, because if we call Sea Tow, it's about $500 to get towed, and we're going to get hit before they show up. And so I'm trying to, like, get a hold of some relatives. So I don't know if you remember Dad's flip phone, but Dad had a flip phone, and he had his sausage fingers, so he couldn't open it. So he thought he would glue a 50-cent piece to his flip phone so he could flick it open, because he couldn't open it. So it's not like he could text anyone, and he couldn't see the numbers to call anyone, so he's over there kind of flicking his phone, and I'm like, we're going to get hit here soon, and we need help. So I'm calling relatives, and I'm texting other ones, and wouldn't you know, the Shelter Island police come, and, you know, the whole bottom of our boat is either squid or empties. And I'm like, I don't know if this is a good idea either, but we don't want to get hit by the ferry. So I call over the Shelter Island police, and I'm like, this isn't going to be pretty, you know, like, because this is when they ask you, like, hey, do you have a whistle? And they did, and I was like, and they're like, okay, we'll let that one go. Do you got life vests? And I kind of whipped them up fast, threw them down, yep. Do you have lights? And I'm like, it's really bright out. You probably can't see them. They're pretty dim, you know, and they didn't work. And he goes, well, give me a rope, and I'm going to tow you out of here so the ferry doesn't hit you. So I'm like, phew, you know, because I just didn't want to get in the ferry slip. So we're getting towed, and I notice we don't have any registration stickers. So he's yelling back to us stuff, and I'm playing the whole, you know, it's windy, I can't, you know, just keep towing. So I knew that he was asking about registration. So I actually went down underneath, and I'm registering as fast as I can on my phone. And I'm on DMV, and I finally get it registered. And of course, my father the whole time's like, "What the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing?" And so finally get it registered, and I come up, and the cop had taken us over to a little safe haven zone where he's like, "I need you to throw an anchor." So I go down, go down, and I know we don't have an anchor. So I'm just down there like, you know, wasting time until I can kind of come back up, you know, and the cop goes, did you just register your boat? I go, I did. And we are legal. Right now we're legal. And the sticker's coming in 10 days. And so at any rate, he goes, well, I need you to throw an anchor. I'm like, okay. So I go back down, and my dad's now screaming at me, you know, get the damn anchor. And I'm like sticking my head out like, we don't have an anchor. We don't even have rope. So all of a sudden, I come up, and I'm like, you know, I have an anchor, but I don't have the rope. And he's like, how do you not have the rope? And all of a sudden, our cousin comes around the point, and I'm like, hey, our cousin's right here. He's going to take care of us. I appreciate it. And he goes, okay, okay. And he kind of just let us go. And I don't know how we got out of it, but we got out of it.
Do we have anybody else? Tony? He's our chief chili maker over here. Hence the apron. With his name on it, that's how I knew who he was.
I got this when I came from the old country. They stamped it on. It says to New York, D-O-N-Y. How's everybody doing? I was told in Clammy's darkest hour that you know, if you leave this world, Tony's going to be the new mayor. Unbeknownst, there's only one mayor, and that'll be Clammy. He was a friend to everybody. He helped so many people out. If there was a storm coming, he'd check people's lines, the water raised or lowered, he'd check on people, make sure they're okay. He taught a lot of us about boating. You weren't a true boater until you had your butt chewed by a Clammy. That's the way it goes. My years as a police officer, firefighter, medic, working in the hospital, I had a chance to see people towards the end of their life. And one of the questions that I always hear was, did I do it right? Did I live a good life? Emerson defines success as this: to laugh often, to win the hearts of children and the respect of honest critics, to endure betrayal, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or some redeemed social condition, but to truly know that you have made just one life breathe easier. That is to have succeeded. And Clammy is probably one of the most successful persons I've had the honor to meet. I'm going to miss him, as we all will. But if you want to know the story of Clammy, look around. It's carved in our hearts and on the faces of everyone here, and then some. And I'm honored to have called him friend. Thank you.
I think we can all agree that Clammy had a life well lived. I would like to call up Bill now. Where are we at? Bill has a presentation he'd like to make. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Okay, all right.
Hi, I'm Bill, and my wife Sadie's over there. I wanted her here for moral support, and she goes, no, you just go ahead. And you talk in front of all these people who know much more about Clammy than I do. Well, I tell you, our boat's that old wooden thing out at the end of the dock with the wooden mast, and it's been a challenge for us. But the one person that we were lucky enough to meet our first year on the water here at Treman was Clammy. How fortunate for us that when we walked out for the first time, he's sitting there in his chair and he gives us a huge smile and a greeting, tells us who he is. Yeah, I've been here for a while, you know. I said, okay, cool, you know. And this is going to be our 7th season on the water here at Treman. And in Clammy years, I mean, we're newbies, right, basically. So one of these times that, oh, well, we sail a lot. And when it's a beautiful breezy day like today, we come down, we have our lunch, dinner packed, we walk the dock, we get on the boat, we leave. One of the things Clammy would say is, you want to see Bill and Sadie? No, you got it's a blink of an eye. They come, they go, they come in, they leave. We don't really hang on the dock like a lot of people do. So one time we came down and it's blowing 20 or 30. And we're looking at that flag flying, and there's Clammy on the dock, and we go out to the boat, and I said, you know, it's only the two of us, and it's a 36-foot boat. So I said, why don't we just, we'll call it a day. So we come back, and we're walking down, and Clammy goes, what are you doing? I said, it's too windy for us today. He goes, are you shitting me? You sailors love this stuff. Get the hell out there. Well, you know, I made this little present to give to Madeline because he touched the hearts of me and Sadie the way he's touched the hearts of all of us. And so, Madeline, this is for you. You can unveil it and then give it to Mary Beth, and if she can show it to the other people. Thank you.
A woman after my own heart. I ask my children, I do the same thing. Yeah. Sorry about that. Hold on, let me just put this down. Got it? Yep. Watch your feet. Yep.
Could you sing for us?
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, it's
Beautiful.
Good, it's beautiful. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Bill.
It's awesome.
Oh, something else. Thank you. Oh, my gosh.
Okay, as you all know, the family is sitting on the bench, and I'd like to do a little prayer to dedicate the bench. Heavenly Father, we give thanks to all who so generously donated towards the bench. We ask that as his family and friends sit and reflect on the joyful memories with Clam Digger, it brings a smile to their face instead of a tear in their eyes, as he would want it. In this we pray, amen. Now, I know everybody's got something in their hand. Bob, how would you like to do this? We're going to do the toast. Bob is going to, he's got a float, and we're going to have the family release Clammy. I'd like you all to raise whatever you've got to Clammy. And the toast, okay. Though now you fish with the master of the sea in the beautiful lakes of heaven, you are gone but never forgotten. Rest in peace, Clammy. Your work here is done.
So this is like a floating shell, and we're in Ithaca, so just so you know, it's environmentally friendly. It's made of rice. And so it's going to float for 5 to 8 minutes, and it's a nice little farewell. My father grew up on the water, and he's going to be returned to the water. And
He'd want to be with friends and family. Cheers.
All right.
Before we all get up, I just wanted to thank Mary Beth and Jean and everybody who brought this celebration to life today. And on behalf of my family, we really appreciate it. And everybody that came down, traveled, we just really appreciate you all being here today. And I just didn't want that to go unrecognized, because as my mother and Uncle Bob and my aunt know and John know, it takes a lot to put these things together. So we just wanted to thank Mary Beth and Dave and Jean and for rallying everybody to get here. So thank you all, and just let's give them a round of applause.
And thank you all for coming again. We appreciate it, and I know Clammy's smiling down on us.